This is how we tackle. So the leverage shoulder system is based on the USA football tackling system. It's safer and more effective than the traditional face mask on the ball tackling, where the player turned themselves into a missile leading with their head. This leverage shoulder tackling relies on the player's leverage responsibility, which we'll talk about. And then the player always initiates contact with the shoulder, striking at a precise target, which is either going to be the near pec or near hip, based on the type of tackle chosen. The head is never involved in the tackle, and then we teach position beats size. The player that gets to their fit position first wins. It's our job as coaches to teach our players to get there and make it second nature. This should be drilled every practice in some way, August through October. We have to reinforce this really to make that second nature so the players can get to that fit position. So the first element to understand is leverage. So leverage is defined as a player's position relative to the ball carrier. So most players are going to be central players. They have inside out leverage. They aim to push the ball carrier to the outside and prevent the cutback. They're always going to try and push that player to the outside. Outside linebackers or cornerbacks usually have inside out leverage where they're going to protect the outside. Their job is to push the player to the inside. Sometimes these are defined as spill players versus fill players. So leverage is determined pre-snap based on the player's position and responsibility. So the player will know what their leverage is prior to the play. An example would be an inside linebacker pursuing a run to his right. He'll always have his head on the inside. He'll always have a right leg lead, right shoulder hit pursuing that ball carrier. The target is either going to be the near pec or the near hip, depending on the type of tackle. And so now we're going to focus on leverage. So really it's this simple. You want to maintain your leverage. So generally you're going to want to push that ball carrier away from the leverage, and then you're going to tag them with your shoulder when you get there. So let's see how these players do it. So safety, inside out leverage, push them out, tag them with your shoulder when you get there. Inside linebacker, inside out leverage. He's going to scrape, pursue, push them out, tag them with your shoulder when they get there. Great form tackle. Defensive end, this is outside in leverage. So he's going to push the player in, keep him on the inside, shoulder, good thigh tackle. Just like in wrestling, there are multiple types of takedowns. There's also multiple types of tackles in football. The type of tackle a player chooses to apply is dependent on his position, situation, size, and preference. There are two main types of tackles, form tackles and thigh tackles. Players need to know both, and we will teach both. The leverage remains the same regardless, but the target of the tackler will change. The most important element to routinely drill is that lead leg, lead shoulder strike. So the player is going to pursue the ball carrier to that breakdown point. They're really going to focus on that lead leg and lead shoulder as determined by their leverage. They're going to initiate this guns position or the swoop position, where basically it's a power step with the hips loaded, chest and head up, arms, your guns are cocked back, ready to strike the near shoulder, focusing on a precise target. This is analogous to the power step for an offensive lineman or that first step. The tackler then is either going to target the near pec or the near hip, depending on the type of tackle that they're doing, and really focusing on that ball carrier is never going to cross that line of scrimmage. So a form tackle, at the breakdown point, you're going to be in that standard guns position. With your lead shoulder, you're going to target that near pec. The finish is going to be a strike up with the uppercuts, initiating that hip hinge, and you're going to grab cloth. This is essentially the form tackle fit on that picture. This is what we're going for. So we're aiming to get all our players in this position when they meet the ball carrier. A thigh tackle, the breakdown is the same. You're scraping, getting to that breakdown or swoop point in that guns position. But now the player's lead shoulder is going to target the near hip. The finish is going to be a horizontal drive, and then you're going to either wrap or put your hands behind the knees. So this is analogous to that traditional rugby tackle where you're going essentially cheek to cheek. It's the most effective tackle, especially for smaller players, but it can be a little bit more difficult to get in this correct position. But this is the best way to tackle if you can get your players in this position. It's great to drill with bags and the tackle wheels. You can also roll to finish for the wider pursuit angles. This is what's known as the hawk roll tackle. These are some examples of form tackles. Watch the lead leg, lead shoulder striking at the near pec, driving upwards. This is a perfect form tackle. Watch lead leg, lead shoulder striking at the near pec, finishing with uppercut, initiating the hip hinge, and driving. This is a great example of a live shoulder tackle. Player is going to break down, lead leg, lead shoulder, initiating contact with his shoulder to the near pec. Now let's watch some live form tackling. So outside in leverage, strike the near pec. Outside in leverage, it's going to be a left shoulder hit. Keep the player inside, strike the near pec. This is a perfect example of a thigh tackle. Going cheek to cheek, finishing. So now let's watch some thigh tackles live. That lead shoulder is aiming at the near hip. Perfect strike. Outside in leverage. Stay outside. Strike with the near shoulder to the near hip. Outside in leverage. Strike the hip. Again. Striking at the hip. One more. Maintaining the leverage. Inside out, striking at the near hip. So what's the most effective way to drill this? Well, we want to drill to get our players in the appropriate fit. Some element of fundamental blocking and tackling should be a part of every practice. It should be as routine as warm-ups. So we should focus on a quick first step in achieving the precise fit on the opponent. Whoever gets to their respective fit first wins the battle. In that way, speed beats size, and that's coachable. So, for example, we have a diamond tackling drill. It only takes about 5 to 10 minutes per practice. You can start in shorts with bags, move to wheels, and then pads, gradually increasing contact and intensity. We work on footwork, intensity, and precision. That should always be 100%, even with limited contact. The goal is perfect fit throughout the reps. Everyone's an inside linebacker here. You shuffle to the breakdown point, and then for an initial form tackling progression, you're working first on hands. You want that lead leg, lead arm stuffs the near pec target. The runner is not going to cross the goal line. You're using the whole body to brace, and it teaches leverage. Second step is you're going to sink down with your guns, getting into that swoop position. You're going to sink the hips. That first big power step splits the legs. Guns are cocked, eyes are on that target. No contact with the second phase. The third phase is you're going to a pop. This is a precise shoulder contact. As you're striking with the tackler's shoulder to the near pec, you're going to pop and drive 2 steps. This is a little challenging to do without gear, but you can use bags initially and then work up from there. Also, we do the same thing moving to a thigh tackling progression. So you can do the same thing with hands, teaching that leverage with the near hip, near shoulder, focusing on that hand at the target. Then you're going to move to the guns position, which is essentially the same. And then third is the pop. It's the same thing other than the target is the near hip. You're going to horizontal drive finish. This is difficult to rep without bags, but we can work our way up to it. Now let's go to a diamond tackling drill. How can we get our players to this fit for a form tackle? So we're going to start out with hands. So we're going to maintain our leverage, lead leg, lead arm. We're focusing on that near pec. We're owning that line of scrimmage. So now we're going to break down or swoop or get to that guns position like we're ready to strike. No contact here. Going down to the guns position. So now we're going to do a guns pause and then come up to a shoulder strike, near shoulder. We're going to do it again, the other side. We're scraping, breaking it down, coming up, shoulder strike with the lead shoulder. So now we're going to put it all together and go live. So now we're going to pop. So we're going to go down and pop. Good. He could have got his hips under him a little bit better there. Now we're going to go another form tackle. Good. That was a good strike. You saw that power there. Now we're transitioning to our thigh tackles. This is our thigh tackle fit. How can we get here? It's the same. So we're going to start out with hands. We're going to put the bag on the near hip. That's going to be our focus. And we really want to focus. That's where we want our shoulder to be eventually. So lead leg, lead arm. Now we're going to go down and swoop or get to that guns position. So lead leg, lead shoulder. We're visualizing that near hip like we're ready to strike. This is all without pads, with really limited contact that we can do on day one. Now we're going to pause. Now we're going to strike. This is much more challenging to do without pads. But he's coming up here. He's sweeping. Strike. He could have got his hips under him a little bit more on that one. And now we're going to put it all together. This is challenging without taking the player to the ground. That was not the best strike. So we'll see how he does on this one. Much better. You saw that power.